In this video, we basically discuss on the power. The power inside the engine cylinder, we basically get the two type of inside the means whole IC engine we get a two type of power. Actually, the three type of power we get, that is a basically indicate power. One is basically the brake power, and another the frictional power. We talk all of this one by one. The indicate power, when the fuel will be get burned, it will be create one type of efficiency. That efficiency known as a thermal efficiency. So due to that particular thermal efficiency, we generate a particular power. That power is basically known as a indicate power. So the power we get into the engine cylinder, that is known as a indicate power. So how we calculate the indicate power? So to calculate the indicate power, we have a particular mode test. So here we have the multi-cylinder engine. So in this diagram, we have a 6-cylinder engine. We run all of the every cylinder in a same load with the same speed, and simultaneously we randomly choked one particular cylinder. Then there have a definitely the loss of like the load in a particular the speed as well, and we try to maintain the same speed and the same load in a early time we achieve. So this is how we achieve the indicator. This is how we basically calculate the indicate power. But to here we basically mainly take a one assumption, that is basically the frictional power. It basically the constant. So this is all about the mode test. And the brake power, the power available at the shaft, it's known as a brake power. The shaft is basically, if I the shaft if I talk about the shaft, we have a basically two type of shaft. We have one is a basically primary shaft, and one is basically secondary shaft. The primary shaft is basically a crank shaft, and the secondary shaft we basically camshaft. So the camshaft is basically responsible to operating this valve. Okay, so camshaft is responsible to operate this particular valve, the inlet valve and the exhaust valve. And the primary shaft, that is a crankshaft, through which we basically get our rotary motion into the wheel. So it basically convert the reciprocating motion of that the piston, into the particular rotary motion. All right. So this is the crankshaft. So this is now all about the brake power and the frictional power. In the previous in this particular diagram, you see there have a particular gap in between the piston and the cylinder wall. All right, so this is the cylinder wall, and this is the piston. In the early videos, I basically by mistake make use a particular term, that is a cylinder head. So this is not a cylinder, this is a cylinder head. All right, so by mistake I use that particular term. So we here in this video we basically see that there have a little gap which is maintained by the piston and the cylinder, means the body of the cylinder. But this is basically the piston ring. I talk the later about the piston ring and the function of the piston ring. So piston ring and continuer came in contact with the cylinder wall. So it basically, when the piston will be the moving, the reciprocating, that time what actually happen, it will be generated the friction. So due to the friction, we get the heat will be produced. So this is actually the one type of losses. So this is known as a friction power. This is basically known as a frictional power. All right. So this is. Now I talk the mechanical efficiency. So what is the mechanical efficiency? Efficiency is basically known as a indicate power. This indicate power divided by brake power is known as a mechanical efficiency. Then I came into the thermal efficiency. So when amount of fresh charge came into the engine cylinder, and it will be the burn, after burning amount of heat will be produced. So that heat is basically known as the thermal efficiency. And also we have another term, that is a calorific value. So overall, when the overall burning of the fuel basically give the particular the thermal efficiency, but one molecule, when the one molecule of the fuel will be burned, that time how much amount of heat it itself produce, that is basically called the calorific value of that particular fuel. If I talk about the volumetric efficiency, then amount of fresh charge came into the engine cylinder divided by chemically correct air fuel ratio, or the psychometric air fuel ratio. And Now if I talk about the mean effective pressure, so mean effective pressure, it is basically the minimum pressure which is required by the piston, by which piston can move from the top dead center to the bottom dead center. So this is the minimum pressure. And the pumping power, I use a randomly one term, that is a pumping power. So pumping power, it is basically the minimum particular power of the piston by which piston can push and remove all the burn gas from the engine cylinder. So this is basically the pumping power. There is another more term. One is basically like the equivalence ratio, and the volumetric efficiency. Both are very symmetrical. The amount of fresh just came into the engine cylinder divided by the chemically correct air fuel ratio. This term also known as the psychometric air fuel ratio or the chemically correct air fuel ratio. So this is actually, and this governing system actually, actually we use to supply the air fuel. So this governing system actually known as a quantity governing system. This I talk this about I talk this in the previous video. And the lubricating oil, how the lubricating oil we basically place. So this is basically the crankshaft, and this crank is actually the bottom of the crank. We basically the sump the lubricating oil. So here we basically place the lubricant. So every revolution of the crankshaft, it basically strike on the particular the lubricating oil, and the lubricating oil basically spread into internal of that particular the engine cylinder. So this is how the lubricating will be done. So this lubricating system itself known as a flash lubricating system. And the purpose of the piston ring are, like the when the lubricating oil will be the bottom piston ring, it basically prevent the lubricating oil to move the upward portion. And because the upper portion there will be the massive heat will be over there, and the function of the upper piston ring is that it basically prevent the burn gas to came down the bottom portion. So this is the function of the piston ring. And there about the cc of the engine, the cc basically known as a cubic capacity. So the cc is basically depend upon the sweat volume, the amount of fresh charge came into the engine cylinder. So and that particular gas or that particular the charge will be sweat by the piston, and compressed it into the particular clearance portion. So this is basically known as the sweat volume. So upon this particular sweat volume, the cc will be depend. So in our car we basically see that in the particular the car in the particular the rear we there have a like 1.2 liter 2 liter turbocharged engine, or 1.3, 1.4, 1.5. So these 1.4, 1.3, these basically indicate the cc's of that particular engine. The 1.2 means 1200 cc, 1.3 means the 300 cc of that particular turbocharge. I discuss with you early videos. So into the engine the massive heat will be generated. So to cooling purpose we provide the jacket over the water jacket. All right. So water jacket we basically provide. So this is how cooling will be provided. So for cooling purpose actually the water will be used. All right. So this is, so thank you.